The woman never expected her world to change so suddenly. One moment, she was standing in a room with her boyfriend's mother, and the next, pain shot through her as the knife pierced her stomach. Her boyfriend's mother, cold and unforgiving, told her that she would never let her son give up his life as a surgeon for her. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was her boyfriend. The woman could barely call out his name when her boyfriend's mother told her that she had already made sure no one would come to help. As her boyfriend's mother ran to open the door, the woman collapsed and dialed 911, but barely managed to speak. She should have died that night, but fate had other plans. She survived, and so did the life growing inside her son. But joy quickly turned into fear when he was diagnosed with leukemia soon after the birth. Ever since, he had been in and out of hospitals, and the woman had done everything she could to protect him, leaving her past behind. The woman's mother visited often, bringing food and comfort, but the pain of watching her son suffer never eased. One day, her sister bluntly questioned who her son's father was and why was never around. The woman wished she could tell them the truth, but her now ex-boyfriend's mother's threats still loomed over her. If her ex-boyfriend ever found out about her son, his mother would make sure he never saw another day. Just then, she saw him, her past in front of her eyes. It was her ex-boyfriend and the father of her son. He was the doctor in the same hospital where her son was being treated. As the woman tried to escape his sight, her sister had fixated her eyes on the hot doctor. Later that day, the woman buried herself in work, trying to secure a major interior design project. But when her sister ended up in the hospital after a reckless night out, hoping to get treated by the hot doctor she had her eyes on, the woman was pulled back into the place she wanted to avoid. She scolded her sister for wasting the doctor's time. The woman's heart pounded as she watched her ex-boyfriend examine her sister when fate got her face to face with the last person she ever wanted to see, the man she had loved once. Looking at her past, she accidentally cut herself with a glass that slipped from her hands. Her ex-boyfriend reached out to help, and for a moment, she forgot everything, the pain, the past, the secrets. But reality came crashing back when he pulled away, his voice distant, his touch fleeting. The next day, the woman's boss called with good news. A wealthy new client wanted her to design his home and wanted to discuss the project at a restaurant. Excited for the opportunity, she arrived at the restaurant for their meeting, only to find her ex-boyfriend at the same restaurant. Hoping to avoid him, she tried to hide herself behind the menu when her ex-boyfriend stood in front of her, revealing that he was the client she was waiting for. She tried to remain professional, offering to have someone else take over the project, but he refused. He wanted her, not in the way he once had, but still. He wanted her expertise for his home that he was planning to share with his current fiancée. The dinner was filled with tension, old wounds reopening with every exchanged glance. The woman avoided his gaze, showing him different options for his future home that she once thought of sharing with him. She thought she could keep things businesslike. Just then, he asked the question she had feared for years. "Why did you leave?" She had no answer, at least not one she could say out loud. Before she could find an excuse, his phone rang. He was needed for surgery, and just like that, he was gone again. As she watched him leave, memories flooded her mind. The way he had once cared for her after her accident, the way his touch had made her feel safe and got her chills down her spine. At the hospital, the ex-boyfriend threw himself into work, but his mind kept drifting back to the woman. He had thought he had moved on, but seeing her again stirred something deep inside him. Meanwhile, the woman's son wandered through the hospital halls, playing with his ball. When he accidentally bumped into his mother's ex-boyfriend, he asked if the man was single because he wanted to introduce him to his mother to fix them up. The man smiled, amused by the boy's boldness. But when the boy mentioned that he was sick and might never wake up, the man felt a sharp pain in his chest. He asked a nurse about the boy's condition and learned that the boy had leukemia, and no matching donor had been found. The thought of losing hope weighed heavily on him. Meanwhile, the woman's heart raced as when she found out that her son had befriended her ex-boyfriend. She had given the nurse strict instructions that the doctor could never know the truth about her son. He couldn't know his last name or his connection to her. The past was dangerous, and keeping it buried was the only way to protect her son. The woman's boss reminded her of her responsibilities. The deal with her ex-boyfriend was crucial, and there was no room for mistakes. She assured him she had it under control, though inside, she was crumbling. When she called her ex-boyfriend to discuss business, his casual response caught her off guard. He invited her to his house to look over designs. When he mentioned his fiancé's key under the mat, the woman was reminded once again of the life he had built without her. But she had to be professional. She had to be strong. The woman arrived at her ex-boyfriend's house, feeling overwhelmed by memories. She told herself to stay focused. His engagement had nothing to do with her. He had moved on, and so had she. But seeing him again, standing in the home he shared with someone else, made her chest tighten. He teased her about her jealousy, stirring emotions she didn't want to face. He reminded her of the past, of how reckless and dangerous she once was. She fought back, but he only smiled. They were here for business, but he suggested dinner first. At the restaurant, the night took an unexpected turn. The man playfully called it their second date, but the woman remained firm. This was business. When her ex-boyfriend asked about her love life, she lied. She told him she was married. The words felt heavy, but they were necessary. Then, her ex-boyfriend's fiancée arrived. The perfect woman, rich and beautiful, the kind of woman her ex-boyfriend's mother would approve of. She greeted her with politeness, though there was an undeniable tension between them. As she kissed him, the woman forced herself to look away. This was reality. She could never compete with someone like his fiancé. Then, her phone rang. It was the hospital. Her son's condition had worsened. She had no choice but to leave, apologizing hurriedly. The man's fiancé's casual remark about having children with her ex-boyfriend cut through the woman like a knife. She walked away, refusing to let the pain show. As the woman rushed to the hospital, her ex-boyfriend found himself staring at the necklace his fiancé had picked up. It was the same one he had given the woman years ago. She had kept it all this time. Did that mean she still cared? He brushed off his fiancé's remark to the woman that why she, being a menial interior designer, had a necklace this expensive. But something about it haunted him, so he excused himself to go to the restroom, while his fiancé, unable to let go, called someone to find more about the woman. At the hospital, the woman's son had stabilized, but more tests were needed. Tests that cost more money than the woman had thought. Desperate, she realized there was only one option left. The necklace, the one thing she had held on to all these years. With a heavy heart, she had to pawn it. But when she found the necklace missing from her neck, she started panicking. That night, she went back to her ex-boyfriend's house. She needed the necklace back, but when her ex opened the door, his pain was evident. He demanded to know why she had kept it all these years. She couldn't tell him, not yet. As she turned to leave, he called her back. His voice was softer this time. He put the necklace on her, telling her not to lose it again. She walked away more confused than ever. The next day, as the woman visited the hospital, she stumbled on her ex-boyfriend, and his coffee fell over her shirt. He offered to help her with a change where things started to heat up when the woman got his fiancé's text asking her to meet. Just then, her ex noticed that she wasn't wearing the necklace and asked her about it. She told him that she had to sell it. Her ex-boyfriend couldn't believe what he heard and asked why, but she couldn't tell him. Just then, he was called in by another doctor for an important surgery. At the restaurant, his fiancé was waiting for the woman. The woman apologized to her, telling her that she was caught up at work, but his fiancé confronted her. She had called her office and knew she spent time at the hospital. Her words were sharp, her warnings clear. Then the woman noticed the necklace around his fiancé's neck, the one she had sold. The fiancé smirked, taunting her that she doesn't like when people eye on her things. The woman forced a polite smile, knowing the battle had only begun. At home, the man saw his ex-girlfriend's necklace on his fiancé's neck and confronted her about it. She told him that she got it from a pawn shop where his ex-girlfriend had sold it because she needed money. But for what? The question lingered in his mind. Meanwhile, the woman's boss approached her with an opportunity. Since she had been handling big accounts, he decided to send her to Scottsdale for a few days. It was a huge deal, a step up in her career, and exactly what she had been working for. She accepted without hesitation, though a part of her felt uneasy about leaving her son behind. Later that evening at the hospital, the woman's ex-boyfriend ran into her son, the little boy who always seemed to brighten his shifts. Her son was sneaking out of his room, but instead of scolding him, the ex-boyfriend asked where he was going. The little boy hesitated before admitting the truth. He wanted to buy his mother a pet. She didn't even like animals, but he didn't care. He just wanted to leave her with something that would outlive him, something that would bring her comfort when he was gone. The man's heart clenched at the boy's words. He assured the little boy that he had plenty of life left to live, but the child simply smiled, wise beyond his years. The little boy then mentioned that the man hadn't met his mother yet, insisting that he would really like her. The man chuckled, playing along, and offered to take the little boy to a pet store nearby. The little boy's face lit up with excitement, and for a moment, everything felt right in the man's world. Meanwhile, the woman was struggling with her decision to leave. She informed her mother about her trip and asked if she could visit her son in her place. Her mother agreed immediately. The woman wanted to spend every second with her son before she left. But suddenly, the woman froze when she saw something that made her world stop. There, in front of her, was her ex-boyfriend, and standing beside him was her son. Her past and present collided in a way she never thought possible. Her ex was so natural with her son. They fit together in a way that made her heart ache. She had spent so long keeping the truth from him, from everyone. But as she watched them, something inside her shifted. Maybe she didn't have to carry this burden alone. Maybe life didn't have to be so lonely. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was time for the truth to come out. But fate had other plans. Just as she gathered her courage, her ex-boyfriend's mother and his fiancé arrived at the hospital. The woman's heart pounded. If his mother saw her and her son, there was no telling what she would do. The past had finally caught up with her, and there was no turning back. Would her ex-boyfriend learn the truth? Would he be the donor her son desperately needed? And if he did, would he forgive the woman for keeping his son a secret all these years?
Hey, I'm Zoe. If you're wondering what happens next, download the Pocket FM app now and listen to the exciting episodes of Rekindled Heartache.